Rebellious Studio presents the Mind Body Podcast with your host, Maria Angelova. Hi, Rebels. Welcome to the Mind Body Podcast, your rebellious podcast with me, your host, Maria, where it is all about a strong body, calm mind, healing, and fully living. Today, it is my pleasure to welcome our guest, Lindsey Lindemulder. Forgive me, Lindsey. And she is a senior brand director with Merrell. I do have to say, one of my favorite brands, Lindsey. So it is such an absolute treat to have you here with us. Thank you for saying yes.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's always a treat to sort of step outside my normal daily tasks and everything like that and spend some time chatting about things that I feel really passionate about. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Lindsey, I know you have a topic that we're going to dive right into, and it's a topic I am personally passionate about, and I preach about it all the time. But before we get to that, we're going to get to know Lindsey by you telling us 3 words that describe who you are and give us a little bit of a backstory behind each word.
Okay. This is so fun. And in classic Lindsey form, I have way more than 3 words because I have more words all the time, as I've been told since I was a very small child. But if I had to pick 3 words, I would pick social, optimistic, and direct. And I think the reason that I picked those words is because if you ask anybody who knows me, and if I think about like, oh, describe yourself, I'm like, oh, I like talking to people. I like learning about people. I like knowing about people. We did some really fun sort of personality, how we work type work in my job a couple of years ago with our big cross-functional team. And it's like, you got a book, like a 30-page book. And it was a deep dive into my brain and my soul. And it was terrifying, but I was like, this is really true. Like, this is absolutely true. All of these things. And in it, and again, throughout the like different parts of my life, I think those are 3 things that it's like anybody who knows me would be like, yes, Lindsey is social. She likes making connections with people. She likes knowing who's connected to who and why. She can make a conversation with anybody. Optimistic because I just think my brain is just wired to be that way, that it's like I said, I said to you earlier before we were chatting, I'm like, we love summer in Michigan because in the winter it's really dark, but you stick it out because you're like, the summer is coming. I know it'll be here. So I'm like, that's sort of how my whole life works. And then direct because I just think it's so much easier. I think it's easier just to sort of like be clear and be simple in what you're saying and how you present yourself and things like that. So those are my 3 for today.
I do have to giggle because I just got off a call with my marketing team. And one of the feedback that I get is, you are too wordy, Maria. You have to get to the point, because I have so many things to say. And the way I say them, they're like, you have to put it in 5th grade language. And I'm like, no, I want to be inspirational and use like big words. And so I think that's just really funny because I literally had this conversation before hopping on this recording. So, and I love the optimistic and I do love the direct, I'm very direct. I come from Eastern Europe, and I have frequently, when I was in the corporate world, actually been told I'm a little bit too direct and I should tone it down. And I think it's such a favor when we are direct and we don't have to zigzag around and still be nice, but get the message directly too, rather than not be truthful, because long-term, I don't believe that doesn't serve us well.
Yeah. I think one of the things why I chose that word and I sort of am embracing that space is because I'm like, so as I've gotten older, and I think we'll get into this as we like talk through some of the things today, but so many people have so much going on in their own world, like in their own head and in their own families and in their own jobs and everything like this. And what you realize is, I'm like, if people are being direct or if they're being away, it's probably not about you, actually. It's probably about how their morning started or about something else. And so that's sort of why I'm like, if we can just be direct and not dance around a whole bunch of things, it'll make it easier for everybody, because everybody's got so much in their heads that they don't need to sift through if it's like what I'm really trying to say or what I'm really trying to mean. So I appreciate that from other people. Not everybody appreciates it from me, but I try to give people enough context so that they appreciate it as well.
as I go through coaching with clients, that happens so frequently, right? Somebody says, and then you're fired up, and it's like, this likely has nothing to do with you. Like you said, they had a crappy morning, they had an unpleasant call, and now that's coming through their interaction with you. Have you heard of or read the book, The Four Agreements? By any chance?
No. Oh, I'm gonna write that down.
Put it on your book. Yeah, put it on your book list. It's a small book, but my goodness, those four agreements, I want my family to know them. Like my clients, I ask them to recite them. I have copies and I gift it to them. But one of the agreements is do not take things personally. So, I actually gifted it to a client, and today she came in, she goes, I have that copy. She's like, you gave me a copy. She's like, the four agreements. I was like, which are they? And they're, do not take it personally, which for me, I'll say it was a game changer. Do not make assumptions, which once again, a game changer. The other two are kind of easy for me. It's always do your best and be impeccable with your words. And I add, especially to yourself, because I think that's so key. But
I love that. I love that. That's really good. I'm definitely going to pick up this book.
Yeah. And let's kind of pivot on the last statement that I said. Be impeccable with your word, especially with you, because you guys at Merrell are doing something very cool. You guys are running on, you tell us the campaign that you guys are running.
A couple of years ago, at the beginning of the pandemic, I joined Merrell in late 2019. And it's like, all right, here I come into this outdoor brand, which I love time outdoors. Like you can ask anybody, you can find me at the beach. I'm always like, let's go eat outside. Let's sort of do all of those things. But I'm not going to lie. When I came into the Merrell business, I was like, but what if they make me go hike to the top of a mountain and like sleep outside overnight or something like that? Like, I don't know how to do that at all. And somebody very wise said to me, that is why you're important on this Merrell team, because really they're missing this giant opportunity for all these people who love enjoying the outdoors, but they're not going to go hiking, or they're not going to go far off the grid or whatever else. Like that's so many people. And I was like, you're right. We're missing this broader appreciation for the outdoors, and the way that Merrell can be a part of people's lives in that way. So anyways, I walk into the brand and it's like, oh my goodness, there's so much good going on. Merrell was like it headed in such a good sort of direction, although it was kind of fuzzy. They were starting to realize a couple things. Number one, the way that people enjoy time outdoors is changing and different, and there's all these new people coming into the outdoor space. Number two, the outdoor industry is so cool. It's like it's cool brands and invention and history and all this stuff, but it's so exclusive. It's a club, and it's like, you're either in it or you're not in it. And it has been a major diversity problem in the outdoors. Like it is largely white, male, rich, all of those things. And Merrell has seen this and is like, as leaders in the outdoor, like we take this really seriously, that we need to undo some of the like boundaries that have been put up by the outdoor industry. And so, but then fast forward, so it's November, and then like 60, 90 days later, all of a sudden the global pandemic hits us and everybody gets sent home. And at first it was terrifying. And it was like, is everyone going to lose their jobs and business is going to be shut down? But then when you have some time and space from being locked up in your house, you realize there's all these silver linings to what happened it's so much sadness, but so many silver linings to what happened in the pandemic. And one of them was that people were spending more and more time outdoors, and the outdoors was not a faraway mountain. The outdoors was their backyard. The outdoors was their front step. I follow someone on Instagram who lives in New York City, and she was posting about taking her 4-year-old out on a scooter at like 6 a.m. because there would be nobody on the streets and she could like run some energy out of him. And it's like, that is people's outdoors, and they get all of the wonderful benefits of the outdoors, even in those types of experiences, which was awesome. And so the work that Merrell has really sought to do quickly and really solidify, like during that crazy pandemic season and all of that, is being a brand that is about the outdoors for whatever the outdoors looks like for you. And yes, we still make product that will take you right to the top of the mountain, but like, what does the outdoors look like for you? And being a brand that's for a generation of people who are just starting their experiences in the outdoors, or maybe they were brand new to the outdoors and they encountered it during COVID, and we want them to stay and we want them to be here and be part of it. And yes, that also means being a more diverse and inclusive and welcoming brand, and creating a space in the outdoors that is more reflective of humanity in all of its forms. And so those are some of the principles that we as a team were like, this is what we want to stand for. We take it really seriously. We're leaders in the outdoor industry, and we take it really seriously that like leaders lead, and you set the tone and you set the pace for what's going on. And that was us taking a moment to say, like, we want to shift this narrative and we want to set a new pace in the industry. And so it was in the midst of all of that as well, that we were seeing research coming out around women and what COVID was doing to women as well. And it was that, you know, all of a sudden, and I always say, like, the biggest blessing for me in that time was that my children were not old enough to be in school. They weren't babies, so I could like let them play, but they weren't in school yet. So I didn't have to do Zoom kindergarten, which sounds like the worst experience ever. And so we're seeing all this information that women in particular are super burned out because they are still working from their computers. So everybody is still working and now having to work at home, while doing Zoom kindergarten or whatever it is. And at the same time, I know so many women who mentally were sort of like making the calls for their family and what was acceptable behavior during the pandemic and what wasn't. You know what I mean? Like, it just was like, well, I don't know, will we go see friends at a park or won't we go see friends at a park? And it was like, those choices seem to be falling on women. And it's not that there was no partnership or anything like that ever, but like naturally, as history has sort of shown us, like women tend to assume the double, triple jobs. And it was especially true. So we're seeing coming out of the pandemic, there's all this burnout. Women in particular are so burned out. Their mental health is so bad. They're working overtime on all of this. And it's interesting then. So we had this nugget of like, women are super burned out. They know they need self-care, but like, why aren't they doing it? Like, why isn't it clicking? And so the power in the idea, I think also was that self-care didn't just start in the pandemic. Like this desire for self-care, it started before that. Like if you look on Google Trends globally, it's like, however many years ago, all of a sudden self-care is like people are super interested in it. So, but then everything got amplified by the pandemic. And so we found ourselves with this really interesting insight and tension around women being burned out, being overworked, being stressed, being isolated, all of that, needing self-care, knowing they need self-care, but then this thing of like why they aren't getting it. And what it led us to do is this amazing piece of work that we built with our agency partners called More Less, which is the call to women to ask them to consider the outdoors as a solution for their self-care. Because what happened with the self-care industry is that you have, I think the last number I saw was like an $11 billion industry built on solving women's primarily need to better themselves or to care for themselves or whatever else. And suddenly the self-care industry has gotten super big, super complicated, super expensive, and all of these things. And it's created this sort of endless chase of like, well, what is self-care and how do I get it? And I always need to try the next thing, the newest thing, the thing that somebody else is telling me to do. And so we really wanted to champion a message that's like, fine. And like, do whatever face mask you want to do whatever rosé night with your girlfriends you want to do. But really, like, there is this long-standing, proven, available form of self-care for you in getting outdoors and moving your body, which is scientifically like what we know truly makes one feel better.
Right. I would tell you, I'm a huge promoter on outdoor time. We started speaking before the recording. We're in Atlanta. So Atlanta is hot and I live in suburban Atlanta. So if I were to not be intentional to step outside, I literally do not have to step outside. I can go from my house to my car, to the store or work or whatever, back into my car and back at home. I do not have to spend a minute outside. And I think people forget that stepping outdoors, I tell people, just step outside and take a breath, like look up at the sky, look up the leaves, like that in itself is therapy, right? And it doesn't take that long. And personally, I am very intentional. And, when you started speaking about like your demographics and like, I love the outdoors. I love hiking. I mean, I torture my family to go hiking and to be active. And I go get coffee and I'm like, let's walk. And they're like, walk. And I'm like, yeah, we're getting our coffee and walking, But I'm not the type that my dad, long time ago, tried to take me camping, and I complained the whole time because we did not stay in a hotel. So that was the last time he took me camping. And maybe I'm more open to trying things like that, but I'm a city girl. I love to be active. I love to be outdoors. I'm intentional to go for a walk, to go for a run, to take my dog out. And it is so important. And what it does to you as a mind body coach, what it does, there is something called outdoor therapy. And that is exactly what you're talking about. That is the power of being outdoors. And when I say be outdoors, I don't mean be outdoors, right? I mean, ditch the phone, whether it's by yourself and focus on the sounds of the birds, what your dog is doing, talk to your friend, talk to your child while you're walking. It is therapeutic, and it's free. You can anywhere, right? You can go to the park, you can do it in your neighborhood if that affords, but it is a fantastic form of self-care and something you can easily do every day. And even aside from self-care, I do say you have to be outdoors every day. People who live in the cities, I grew up in the city, there is no option to not be outdoors. But if you live in the suburbs, we forget that we are designed to be outdoors.
Yes.
And it is so important to remind people. And I do have to tell you, as I was doing some research prior to our recording, I said, my hiking boots are Merrell. I have, the wet shoes, which are Merrell. But I was like, and it's funny, I am looking for comfortable shoes when I go get my coffee and walk around to wear. And I'm like, I have not thought of Merrell. So it is really funny that when I started looking at stuff, I was like, look at that. And then you just brought it up on the conversation. So I definitely, as a potential customer, I definitely think you guys are on the right track.
I love that. I love that. It's so true. I just, the interesting thing is exactly what you just said, that like, you love to go hiking, but how often can you really hiking? Like once a week, maybe on a Saturday morning, if you're lucky to do it that regularly. But how often do you go walk outside to go get your coffee every single day? And so that's really the big sort of like goal for us as a team. Like, how can we break open this brand to be a champion for people's outdoor experiences, sort of like whatever they are, because it's something else we've talked about a lot. We talk about the simple power of the outdoors, and it's because, again, like when I go back to the outdoor industry, not to slam the industry, because I love it and we are like part of it, and it's so cool. And they've given us so many cool brands and so many tools to help people get outside. But there is a sense of like, you have to know all the gear, and you have to have all the stuff, and you have to have all the latest trinkets and gadgets and whatever else, when in reality, it really is that simple to step outside and take a moment. A couple of years ago, did you ever watch that Vogue did a content series called like Vogue 70 questions or 90 questions or something like that? It's so interesting. It's on YouTube. Anyways, they walk up to somebody's house, a celebrity, and like knock, knock, open the door. And the whole interview, it's like 3 minutes long. The whole interview is the person just asking questions. That's it. It's no back and forth. It's just question, answer, question, answer. And Daniel Levy, they did one with Daniel Levy, and he talks about being creative. And then they said, what do you do when you're creatively stuck? Like when your mind's stuck? And he said, I go take a walk around the block. And we're like, yes, that's it. It like not only stress, not only take a breath, not only a bad meeting, not only like whatever else, but like it reinvigorates your creativity and like it's a reset for you for whatever sort of is going on.
And you know what, that goes along. I always preach intentional movement and mindset. And, that's when I demonstrated the phone, because when you step outside, like really step outside, because that is exactly what it does when it allows you to quiet the mumbo jumbo that's going in here, right? When it allows you to even stand up. Some people don't even stand up. They don't move, right? It allows your body to like stand up, see the sunshine, get that, vitamin D. Like, yes, it resets you. When this is quiet, that's when you can be more focused, more creative. You can concentrate better. If you sit over a desk and over your phone, I mean, let's talk about eye health, right? And being exposed to the computer and the phone, and like I have the ring light right now, right? That is not precisely so healthy for my eyes. So being out natural light, some people are not exposed to natural light. That is a scary thought. Yes, it's good for you from so many perspectives, and it has such tremendous health benefits, and it's simple. That's the beauty of it.
Yes. Exactly.
Yes, well, I love it, and I do have to tell you, I will be shopping for some Merrell shoes while I take my walks. I need some good
I love
shoes.
it.
I
I
feel
love
like
it.
you, and
We can
I'm
help
like,
you.
that. Yes, definitely. All right, Lindsay, let's start wrapping up. And do you have any piece of advice or a favorite quote you would like to share with us?
Oh man, we've already covered so many good ones. The thing I like as a woman and as a mom and as a daughter and a wife and all of those things, I heard somebody say, because it's interesting to work and have a career and have a family and all of that. And the way that when I grew up, my mom stayed at home with us. I was so blessed to have that. But a lot of the women around in the community that I grew up in, the women didn't work. And it wasn't until I got into the workforce that I was like, oh, this is how you do it. Like this, here's some women who have careers and families and like they're making it all work. But I heard a quote, and I unfortunately don't know who said it, so somebody can fact check this, but that you can have it all, you just can't have it all at the same time. And I love that so much because I think that it sort of also speaks to like seasons of life. And it's something when you talk about like mind and body health and all of that. I'm in my late 30s now. And in my early 30s, I slammed in, I call it stress mountain. I slammed into stress mountain. And it was just this moment of like, I don't physically feel well. Like I'm really stressed and I don't physically feel well. And I was so confused by it because again, I know that I'm super blessed in this sense, but I hadn't experienced this before. Like I hadn't experienced this like stress that makes you like feel physically sick. And through a handful of tools, therapy, time outdoors, exercise, etc., you come over it. And I'm like, oh, stress is like a mountain range. Like sometimes you're at the top of the peak and then you come down it and then there's another peak and then you come down and whatever else. But what that helped me do was realize that like there are seasons of everything, and there are new days are really new days, and new weeks are new weeks. And I love those two ideas together, that there's like, you can have it all, but you can't have it all at the same time. That just, it's not possible. You sometimes say no to certain things or say, this is going to downshift because I'm going to pour more effort or energy into my family at this point. So my career is I'm just going to steady my career instead and focus on my family, or vice versa. I'm going to amp up my career and my family's in a space that I can sort of run steady with. And that notion of like it happening at different times and different seasons, and that being okay, and being the way that the world is and the way that we as humans like sort of are meant to exist, has been something that's just been really helpful for me as I think about my life and think about even like moments like when I have one of those days that's just like so stressed, I'm like, I have a tendency to be like, this is how I'm going to be forever. This is my life forever. And then I'm like, no, it's not. These are seasons, and tomorrow's a new day. And you just have these moments, and then time continues and there will be something new for you on the other side of it. So those would be my like, more words than less. That's how I always am, but those would be my like two that work in conjunction with each other.
You know, I do have to relate because I was in the corporate world for a long time and I was a working mom. And then I started entrepreneurship, and I thought I was working a lot before. I mean, now I work a lot more.
All the time.
And, the mom's guilt, I mean, that's a very real thing, right? Because you work and the kid wants attention and you feel like you're not giving the kid, but the business requires your energy. And I have become really intentional. Okay, I know that during the week, I will not spend as much time with my daughter, but I used to work on the weekends before. Now that's like a firm no. There are exceptions, but for the most part, that is my family time. So during the weekend, that is my intentional time. Like, what are we doing? What are we going to do? What are we going to hang out? And I do have a teenager. So right now she's like, I don't want to hang out with you on the weekends. So that's all these dynamics there. But yeah, it has been a mental readjustment to like, you can, be here and here and here and here, and then you really are nowhere and you're just stressed out, rushing and running between places, but you're not really present anywhere.
Yes. I think that was one of the things, like sort of back to COVID when I thought about that. And I was lucky enough to get to like be sort of the orchestrator and like help create what our women's campaign was. And it was so personal to me because I was like, I just feel like when you try to do it all at the same time, you suck at everything. Like, and working from home was not good for me because my kids were there. And so they were like, well, you're here, so why aren't you here for me? And it was like, I felt like I was a crappy mom and I felt like I was sucking at my job. Like, I was like, this sucks. I don't like this at all. Like, I need to be good. I can be good at one at a time. So I need to shift which one. And when we saw what ended up being sort of our anthem and our video for the More or Less campaign that we did, I cried the first time that I heard it. And I looked around the room and all the other women were crying too. And I was like, oh, we have
You know, that is a good one then. Yes.
You know that it's a good one. You know, it's a good one. So I couldn't agree with your sentiment more about being just like, and I applaud you and totally admire you because I do think like working corporate's one thing, but entrepreneurship is like a whole different ball game. And it's hard you're always on and it's hard to like set those parameters. And so I can empathize with that.
Talking to you because you're saying so many cool things. I'm just going to throw in like boundaries, right? Because like my studio is in my house. My office is in my house. So I am in the house all the time. And to your point, especially when the kids are younger, you're in the house. So you're not at work. So I've had to stop, like when mommy is in the office, mommy is working, mommy is not available for questions, interruptions, and things like that. And in the beginning, once again, that mom's guilt kicks in, like, oh, I just said no to my child, right? But over time, it creates that balance, and it's great for the relationships within the family to respect those boundaries and know those boundaries. And it teaches kids boundaries too. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, and it teaches too that it's like, if when you're at work and mom's not available because you're at work, also when you're not and you're on family time, you're not distracted by a million other things. Like I feel like it sort of teaches them that you will be present for the thing that you're supposed to be present for. And it goes both ways, which I think is really cool too.
Yeah. All right, Lindsey, what's your definition of rebellious? I have to ask.
Oh, I think it's going against the grain. I think that's rebellious. I think when you like initially say rebellious, you like close your eyes, and at least this is for me. I imagine a motorcycle and tattoos and leather for sure are things that come to mind. But really, I'm like, being rebellious is going against the grain because I think that it takes a level of guts to do it, and a level of saying like, I understand that it's all going this way, but I actually think I'm going to go that way. And that's rebellious to me.
Just making me happy hearing that definition. That's kind of like exactly how I feel. So
I love it.
Lindsey, where can people find you online, find more about, the campaign, shop shoes, shop products, like where can we get more info? Okay.
So I'll start with Merrell. You can always go to Merrell.com, Merrell, Merrell.com. That is where you can find sort of everything on our website, shop our shoes. We have a handful of really great retail partners across the United States and around the world, really. REI, Dick's Sporting Goods, Shields, a handful of great partners. So you can always find our products there too, which is really great. On Instagram, so follow Merrell, which is fun. Lots of tips on getting outside and inspiration to go do so. I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn. If anybody's interested in following me, you're of course welcome to. I don't think I'm as interesting as the brand that I work for is, but either way, yes, online is the best place to find us, of course.
And you know what? I do think when you talk to employees of different companies, seeing the energy and the passion and the enthusiasm of an employee, I think that speaks very loudly about the brand. So, kudos to Merrell for bringing people with great energy. Yes.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm really grateful for you making time to be here. I know you're on a busy schedule, so thank you for sharing kind of like the idea and the insight behind how the, More is Less campaign was born. And I do hope you guys enjoy this. If you have any questions, you can ask them. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. Do make sure you stay rebellious. Thank you, Lindsey.
Thank you so much.
Can't get enough of those rebellious conversations? Do make sure you subscribe, like, and share.